Have your attention, please. I don't know where the jar's at, the meal jar. Hopefully it's got around. If you've forgotten to do that, please do that. It means an awful lot. Again, I want to welcome everybody here. I'm real excited about the turnout. Want to mention, I want to get down in concrete here. The next Rosy Roundup is September 26th. They're always going to be on Thursdays, and then if you can memorize this, it's always going to be the last Thursday in September and the first Thursday in May. So that's we'll get that down, and so you'll know ahead of time. We'll probably still be making phone calls, and we'll do some emails about 6 weeks to a month before the event. I want to let you know that I've had several people say they're not going to be here. I'm videotaping, so if you want to know how to come see this, I've got a YouTube channel, and you can just put my name in, and it'll have the event on there. Don't want to put anybody on the spot, but raise your hand if this is the first time you've been here. Okay, thanks a lot. We really appreciate it. Hopefully you can tell some other people. I think it's one of the best kept secrets around, and I've been coming for a long time and met some prestigious people here in Indiana high school basketball. So in order to do this, I don't do all this by myself. I've got some people that I need to thank. First of all, Bill and Bob Ritter for the PA, use of the PA. Sam Fix did some of the phone calls along with Mike McGuire. I know Mike's been a little on the ill side, but he's coming back, so we appreciate Mike and Sam. Larry and Martha Randall. Larry's around with the jar. Really appreciate your help. And Martha, appreciate you getting some more lists for me. I don't know what to say about this guy. The meat's been furnished by him for several years, Jerry Hoover. So, Jerry, thanks a lot, man. And I want to thank Alan Milburn. I think Alan he's still back there. Alan, he's kind of guided me into this. I really enjoy doing this, so I really appreciate all his guidance and to get everything in place. And last but not least, John Stuckey. How about that food, guys? Can't thank you enough, John. I told somebody earlier, besides Thanksgiving, there's always 2 meals I look forward to as opposed to Rosy Roundup meals.
Thank you. It means a lot to my family that you guys still come over here. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Okay, I've got a little agenda here, some people that, besides our special guest, and I am just real excited about this guy, but I've got a few other people here that I've invited. Larry Randall, would you come up for a moment? Larry's got something he wants everybody to share some information.
Thank you. I'm Larry Randall, Zionsville, Thorntown. About 6 weeks ago, a classmate of mine, Dave White, Dave, hold your hand up. We started what is now called the Boone County Basketball Hall of Fame. And our main goal or mission is to award 2 scholarships every year to one boy and one girl from Boone County that played basketball and are going to further their education, be it a 4-year school, 2-year school, trade school, whatever, and they don't have to play basketball. But those 2 inductees will be announced in about 10 days. I will tell you, I'm not going to tell you who they are, but there will be a boy and a girl, and one is from Lebanon and one is from Zionsville. So that's our main goal. We had our first inductee organization meeting and made the inductees about 2 weeks ago at Lebanon. I'm just going to give you a few of the names that we inducted, and you might remember some of them. From the 1919 Thorntown Final Four, that we had 2, Art Masters and Walter Cross. Of course, they're deceased, but Walter Cross's daughter accepted in his honor, and her name is Ina Schilling, Ed Schilling Sr.'s wife, and of course their son is Ed Schilling Jr. We also had John Robbins. John, you want to hold your hand up? Thorntown grad. Myron Dickerson. Myron's here, right? Myron was from Perry Central. The school doesn't exist anymore. And there's about 6 or 7 schools in Boone County that have closed, but we're going to honor those too in the future as far as Hall of Fame players from those schools. Whitestown, Pinnell, Granville Wells, Thorntown, Advance, Jamestown. So we'll be bringing those schools up. We also had Jim Fisher, Brian Walker from Lebanon. He was there. There was 2 Beasley girls, 2 sisters from Western Boone. They were both on the All-Star teams, and they're both in the Hall of Fame at Newcastle. Chris Beach from Zionsville. She couldn't accept because her daughter, Maddie Nolan, is on this year's girls All-Star team, and she was playing a game in Knightstown on the old Hickory floor. But accepting in her honor was her dad, Don Veach. Don, hold your hand up, buddy. There you go. We also inducted Pete Mount from the 1940s and some guy named Rick Mount. And yes, Rick was there. He signed autographs and it was just as pleasant as he could be. And we appreciate him showing up. And the last one we inducted, probably if it wasn't for him, we wouldn't be here today. And that was Jim Rosensteel. Jim played in Zionsville for his uncle Al Rosensteel. And of course, later on, he went and coached Lebanon and Rick Mount. But it was an honor to recognize Jim Rosensteel. Anybody wants to be a member of our group, it's a non-for-profit 501 organization, and we can use memberships or at any time you want to donate for the scholarship. We'd appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Okay, I'd like Chris May. Chris, would you come up and talk to a few minutes about what's going on at the Hall of Fame?
It won't be a few minutes. I'm a dumb guy, but I'm smart enough to know you didn't come to listen to me today. Although, JD, if I'm being honest, the coaches at my table said they didn't come to listen to you either. Greetings, welcome, welcome from the crowd in Newcastle. Thanks to everybody that's involved. Stand up or show of hands. Indiana Basketball Hall of Fame inductees. We have a ton today. Can we stand up, be recognized? Among those, Jerry Hoover was a 2019 inductee in our ceremonies on March 20th. We've just come through the banquet season for us. I mentioned the men's ceremonies. Our women's ceremonies were this past weekend. Another note is that we've got Dave Sanders here. Dave's daughter Meredith was one of our inductees this year on the women's side this past weekend. Good to see you for the second time in 4 days. We've got a lot going on. The summertime is a changeover in exhibits in the museum, so if you haven't been to Newcastle lately, come over. We've got our 2019 inductee exhibits. We have a number of other exhibits that are in the works that will change out, so bring your kids, grandkids, family members, basketball buddies, make a day of it, come see us, maybe stop in Knightstown along the way and have some fun with that. We're always in fundraising mode. We're entering golf outing season, so we have 3 of those coming up. The first of which is our Southern Indiana outing, the world's greatest fundraiser. Sam Alford is here today. He'll sell you a sponsorship for our outing down south. We'll also be at Chippendale and Kokomo on June 26th for an outing, and then in Noblesville, Pebblebrook on July 22nd. So we'd love to have, whether it be a whole sponsorship, coming aboard as an individual to play, or sponsoring a team, we'd love your support there. As I said, please come visit the museum. We've got a lot of fun things going on there. And that's all I really have to say at this point. Thanks for your time.
Kip Wiesner from Hoosier Basketball. Kip, where are you? Come on up, Kip.
Thank you, Jeff. I appreciate being here. I know not everybody, maybe not very many people know me, but hopefully you know the Hoosier Basketball magazine. And Gary Donna used to come to this event probably when it started and came a number of years. The last 15 and 16, I don't think he was able to get out very often. But as you all know, he passed away in 2017. and I've been able to take over the magazine and had 2 years, but next year is our 50th anniversary issue. And so had even the State House talk about how they're going to have a declaration of Hoosier Basketball Magazine Day for the 50th anniversary of Hoosier Basketball, which will be in January, so I'm really excited about that. I'm going to try and get out all over the state as much as I can with media and really promote and recognize 50 years of Hoosier Basketball Magazine. Gary Donna, it's the only job I ever had. I met Gary out of college, and I worked for him for 25 years before his death, and he always talked about the 50 years and had it up on the wall in Guyan Road. You guys may have been in the office times, and he'd always talk about, well, I'm going to get to here and get to 50 and then have to do this other wall and all this different stuff. Well, obviously he didn't make it to 50, but I'm certain that Hoosier Basketball Magazine is going to make it to 50 because it's only 4 months or 5 months away. I've been working on questionnaires, pictures, information on the magazine. In fact, for girls basketball, there's only 10 schools in the state that I don't have stats for, and I'm still trying to track those down. So again, I really appreciate being here. I left a few copies of the magazine. There's maybe 12 or 15. I've got some more in the car. So if you haven't seen a copy of the 2018-19 issue, feel free to pick one up. One thing I want to mention about the 50th anniversary, after Gary's death, I did a nostalgia copy and put Gary's picture, and this Romeo Langford was a replica photo of John Garrett from Peru. That was the first year that Gary actually published the magazine, so that was just kind of to recognize what he had done to start. And this year we're going to do a commemorative cover and try and encompass 50 years of basketball, which is obviously going to be a challenge on a front cover of 8.5 by 11. But anyway, thank you again for your time, and feel free to get a copy of the magazine. I'll see you in September.
Thanks a lot, Kip. I'm sure some of you have been to several of the Rosy Roundups. Knew Gary was a regular here twice a year, so I was telling Kip I've got all the magazines except the first 3, so I'm trying to hunt those down. Jan Connor says she's got them, so I'm going to try and see if I can get all of them. But you need to get a copy of that, especially the one coming up. So, okay, Bobby Cox, Commissioner of the IHSA, is here. He's got a guest with him, so Bobby, come on up, and from here on out, we'll probably. Anybody's got any other questions or anything, we can open up the floor a little bit, but I'm going to turn it over to the Commissioner of the IHSAA and tell us what's happening, Bobby.
Thanks, sir. Good afternoon. My father once told me that if you're going to be an after-dinner speaker, you either need to be brilliant or brief. Well, brilliance is out of the question, so I'm going to opt for brevity. We are just finishing up our winter season and our tour around the state to visit our members, and our annual meeting just concluded. I do have a guest with me today. Paul Neidig is our newest assistant commissioner, administers boys basketball, and Paul's never been to Rosy's Roundup, so I thought good opportunity to bring him up and have him be here. We had a great winter, successful basketball tournaments, a really good tour around the state, visiting with our member schools and principals and athletic administrators. 23 proposals that were before the board of directors. Not all of them passed. There weren't any proposals specifically to basketball. There were some football ideas that were forwarded and passed, and I'm excited about those. To pair off of what Chris said, the IHSA is always in fundraising mode. So you get out in the spring and go see some games and pay your admission. We're always in fundraising mode. We also have a foundation. IHSA Foundation is still in its infancy, about 3 years now, and we will have a golf outing on Friday, July the 26th, and we raise money to provide educational opportunities for schools and for student athletes, scholarships in support of our Champions Together program, which is our partnership between the IHSA and Special Olympics Indiana. So we are excited about what's going on. We're going in a good direction, and entertain any short questions you might have. Surely you got something. Yes, sir.
Is the National Federation of High School Athletics, have they passed the shot clock rule for upcoming seasons?
They've not passed it as a rule. It's a state association adoption. So there are states in our country that do use a shot clock. Indiana's not opted to do that. That's not been a proposal that's been forwarded by the Coaches Association. And so if it were to be forwarded by the Coach Association or by a member principal, we might entertain that notion, but it's about a 50-50 proposition in Indiana.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Bobby, I've got a question. Just first time, of course, you were in our area with the IHSA state softball championships over Purdue. That go all right, and do you foresee that staying on?
Well, we're going back to Purdue this spring for our second one. I would tell you this, and I don't think I'm preaching to the choir here, but the reality is in Indiana, we are extremely fortunate to participate in venues that no other state in this country has the opportunity to do. Now that, you know, if you're in Texas and you're playing in Jerry World, that's pretty special. But when you look across all of our sports and where our young people get to play their state championships, no one matches it. We had the opportunity to take our softball tournament to Purdue, as Jeff said. Great relationship with Mike Babinski at Purdue and all of their staff. It's a tremendous venue. If you've not seen the new things that Purdue has built on that west side of the campus, you need to take a trip and go see it. It's fabulous. And they are a great host, and we're looking forward to going back up there. But when you consider Lucas Oil Stadium and Bankers Life Fieldhouse and the IU Natatorium and IU Bloomington for track and field and Laverne Gibson for cross country, these are national championship venues, Super Bowl venues, NBA Finals venues. You start adding that all up, no one gets to do that in the United States except our kids. So we're very fortunate. And Purdue's right there with it. There will be opportunities for Purdue University to host NCAA regionals and beyond because of the investment that they've made in their university. So we're excited about going. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Another question, feather in your cap. Can you talk a little bit about your Special Olympics program? I really got to say that's just really been outstanding.
Well, I think I would be remiss if I didn't say that our partnership with Special Olympics Indiana started from our Student Advisory Committee. And I've told this story before. I'm a member of the Downtown Kiwanis in Indianapolis. And I'm a backsliding Kiwanian, and Larry's back there. He doesn't see me at very many meetings, but he knows I'm a member. But when I go to the meetings, I pay attention. I actually do pay attention. So I'm at a meeting several years ago, and they have the necrology report. I think all of us in this room know what that means. And it went on for about 15 minutes. And so further down in the agenda, we had the membership report. And that went on for about 15 seconds. Well, I'm one of those guys that made the top half of the class possible. But when I'm driving back to the office on North Meridian, I'm thinking about that, and I'm thinking, you know what? If we don't start getting some members in the Kiwanis Club, we're going to die. There's not going to be a club. And you know whose fault that is? That's our fault. That's adults' fault. It's not the kids' fault. We're not teaching kids servant leadership. We're not teaching kids to give back. Well, we've got a committee at the IHSA. It's been there for about 15 years now, called the Student Advisory Committee. And those young people, they mirror our board. 18 of the best and the brightest young people in our state. 9 juniors and 9 seniors. You got to interview, and it's a stringent process. So I went back to them on one of their quarterly meetings, and I gave them a little speech about how lucky you are. You get to represent your high school. You get to wear the jersey with the name of your school across the front. And many times that's the name of your community. And you're getting coaching, and you're getting teaching, you're getting facilities, you're getting transportation. Sometimes they're feeding you, and what are you giving back? And they looked at me like I was from Mars. What do you mean, what are we giving back? I said, what are you giving back? You need to give back to your community. You need to thank these folks for everything you're doing. I said, I'll give you a challenge. You go find somebody that you can support. I don't care who it is, but find somebody you can support and start giving back. The only stipulation is I want it to be in all 92 of our counties. They interviewed Riley's Children's Hospital, and they interviewed Special Olympics Indiana, and they chose Special Olympics. It wasn't me, it was our students. From that came our Champions Together program, where our students work together with special needs kids in our schools. And the way that we sold this program to our membership is that we talked to the principals and the superintendents of our state and say, if you want to make your school better, you need to do this. If you want to make your culture better, you need to do this. This is what's going to change the culture of your school and your community. So no longer are those young people sitting at the end of the cafeteria in the last table. No longer are they the ones that walk down at the end of the hall by themselves. They're walking right down the middle of the hall with the quarterback of the football team or the champion sprinter from the track team. They're walking right down the hall and they're high-fiving and they're wearing their letter jackets because now they are a part of the team. They're a part of the school. And those young people, they love their high school just like we all do. They just want to be a part, and they don't have a way to express it. So I'm very proud of what our young people have done, and it's the kids, and they continue to do it. We don't do much with it. The adults don't. We set the tournament up. Paul and I set the tournament up. It's about all we do. The kids do it. So I'm very proud of it. It's a part of our association that I think is necessary. I think it's good for our membership. I think it's good for our communities, and I think it's been good for the association. Any other questions? I'm going to get off this thing here. All right. Thanks for what you guys do.
Thanks again, Commissioner. I want to bring up new Hall of Famer Jerry Hoover. Jerry, again, we want to thank you for the meet, but he said he'd be brief. I wanted him to talk a little bit about his induction real quick, and then he's got a little bit of a sensation that's a brewing he wants to talk about here. So, Jerry.
Well, you people that know me know I've got one single qualification for being in the Hall of Fame, and that is I outlived all of the ones that were better than I was. Hell, I couldn't play a lick when I was in high school. Only played 1 year as a senior at high school in Monticello. Scored 136 points. That won't get me in. You've all coached against me and kicked my ass, and so you know that I'm not really good at great coach. But I just outlived everybody, and it's a great honor, and I appreciate it very much. As far as Luke Brown is concerned, I've got a player at Blackford that Christoph can tell you about, Frank can tell you about. He's on their AAU team. The sophomore scored 35 a game this year as a sophomore, led the state in scoring. I could talk about him for a long time. He's just a good kid, straight A student, 6.5 assists, 35 points. Now that makes me a hell of a coach. And he's pretty good. He's 6'1", 43% from three, and I guess that's about it. I think he's pretty good. I coached Whitman at Ben Davis. I'd put him in the same category, and I've been fortunate to coach several good players. And so if you ever get a chance, a lot of people here have seen him. If you get a chance to get over and see him, and we're going to go around the state with him a little bit. And he's a nice player. Thank you.
Well, the way I hear in those parts, Jerry, you may have to call ahead to the ticket office because you got a sensation going there and you're part of it. The gym's full every night on the home games, so nice job over there. Got some information here you may not know about. I don't know where you've seen a guy roaming around with a shirt on that says Warren on it, but Christoph, you want to stand up? It's going to be named today the new head basketball coach at Warren Central High School. Congratulations, Christoph. Best of luck to you. Hope you'll still come to here to the Rosy Roundup. You and your dad are loyal, so anyway, best of luck. Okay, we're ready for our main speaker, and I couldn't be more excited about this guy. I've been a referee for a long time, and I've probably seen him on television. You have too, but I'm going to have Jerry Pearson come up and introduce him. So, Jerry.
Thank you very much, Jeff. I want to, first of all, congratulate Boone County for inducting Myron Dickerson into the Hall of Fame. Many of you know that I played for Myron several years ago, and believe me, he's been a Hall of Fame coach a long, long time, and I know he appreciates that. So, Myron, congratulations on that. I told Jeff last year I was here, and he made a comment to all of us. He said, if anybody has any ideas of speakers, let him know. So I came up and said, I think I can help you out on that. So I called 5 people before I finally got JD to admit to come. But at any rate, JD Collins and I are really good friends. We've gone to church together, we've prayed together, we've laughed together, and we've cried together. So that's how well I know him. But he was just starting his career when I was getting out of coaching, and I know what a great job he's done. But JD's an Indiana Wesleyan graduate. And he's been a part of officiating for a couple decades now, and as an official himself, and told me coming over he would probably continue working at age 56. I think he is now if he could, but his knees wouldn't let him do that. But he's the national coordinator of basketball officiating in the NCAA, and he's been a part of several leagues, the Mid-American that I was involved with the Big Ten, the ACC, Big East, and Summit Leagues, Horizon League. All the major leagues he's been involved with. He was coordinator of the MAC and the Summit League a few years ago. He's been commissioner of the Crossroads Conference for 6 or 7 years at one time. And so this guy knows officials, has been around the league. And without further ado, I want you to hear from him. And let's welcome J.D. Collins to the podium. J.D.
Well, first of all, having lived in Blackford County for 35 years, I believe, I want to thank Jerry Hoover for what you're doing in Blackford County at Blackford High School. You all know there are towns that you need something, and Jerry and certainly the great player you have are doing great things for our county, and I truly thank you. I know that you didn't come here, is it Chris that said that? You didn't come here to hear me. I know that. I now know that for 2 reasons. Number 1, that meal was outstanding. You all could agree to that. And number 2, I've been listening a little bit, and there's been more lies told at every one of these tables since you got here than I can imagine. Now, I want to start, let me get my glasses over here. So, every coach in this room thinks I'm blind anyhow, so why not just admit it, right? One of the benefits that I had in refereeing was I was fortunate enough to be at the Final Four a couple times. In 2004, I was the alternate at the Final Four in San Antonio, and in 2008, I worked the semifinals, UCLA and Memphis. After the UCLA-Memphis game, the phone blew up. I went out to try to watch the second game, and it just didn't work for me. So I went back to my hotel room. My wife was still in the arena with a friend, and they watched the game. And she came back into the hotel room, and I looked at her just as serious as I could be, and I said, "Honey, in your wildest dreams, did you ever think I would have a chance to referee in front of 72,000 people in this way?" She said, "Well, actually, honey, you're never in my wildest dreams." That kind of put it in perspective for me. It's just what she said, and I tend to understand that. So I have an alarm that's going to go off on my phone so that I stop talking. The reason for that is so that you can ask me the questions you want to ask me. Ran into Mark Massario, a longtime friend, when he walked in the door, and he said, "I got a question for you." He got done with that one. He said, hey, I got another question for you. And he went through 6 questions. That was his one question. But you have questions about the NCAA, about, I don't know, schools, coaches, whatever. I don't care. I want to at least have the opportunity to give you what you want, which is the answer to your question. So that'll be the focus. My job is the NCAA National Coordinator of Officials. People ask how my plush office at the NCAA is, and I don't have an office there. I don't want an office there. I work out of my home in Hartford City, and it works perfectly. During the wintertime, I travel from October 15th through about April 15th, 5 to 6 days a week, and generally watching games, breaking down games, and watching officials. It's kind of like family. Indianapolis is far enough away that I don't have to go there every day, but if I need to, I can, and that's the way I like it. There's 3 roles that I play at the NCAA. Number 1, I influence how our officials call the college basketball game. Number 2, I am responsible to identify, select, advance all 100 of the officials in the NCAA tournament. And number 3, it's my job to try to instill some accountability into officiating, certainly at the college level. There's about 1,000 Division I officials out there. There's, if you include Division II and Division III, there's about 2,500 officials that I have influence on, and I take that job very seriously. My April, which we just finished, and it actually spilled into April and May, starts the day after the Final Four. And that involves me calling approximately 50 officials that didn't get in the tournament, got in the tournament but didn't advance, and trying to share with them what they can do better so that they can move up a level in upcoming years. I think that's the minimum that I can do. The other thing is committees. I report specifically to Dan Gavitt, who's the Vice President of the NCAA men's basketball, or actually basketball, because he has both men and women. I report to the men's basketball selection committee, so I have to meet with them and give them the lowdown on what happened and what we're going to do. I meet with the rules committee, which is next week. We meet Tuesday through Friday, and we go through, I think we've got 48 rules proposals that we're looking at for the upcoming year. 30 of those, none of you in the room would even notice. It's editorial or minor in nature. There's about 15 to 18 that are pretty significant and could change the game. And so I report in some way to them. I also report in some way to the College Commissioners Association, the 32 individuals that oversee each of the conferences across the country. And then there's the Oversight Committee, who is a group of about 20 people who look at the game from a 10,000-foot level and say, this is what we want our game to look like in 5 years. How do we get there? Whether it's rules changes, enforcement changes, whatever it is, they have a significant play on what happens to our game. And then the Competition Committee, which is based of coaches, administrators, media people. They dig deep into things that the Oversight Committee don't want to spend the time on. For example, we have a group there in the Competition Committee that is looking at technology. Should we allow coaches to have video on the bench to be able to show their kid what they did right or wrong? Should we be able to allow statistics to come direct to the coaches? Just looking at technology, and can we use it in our game in a better way? Those are some of the folks that I deal with on a regular basis. From May to August, I work on videos for training for the fall, and those videos are both for officials, but they're also for media. I think one of my jobs is to communicate to the media and try to get them to understand the rules that we have and why we're calling it a certain way. Now, CBS and Turner do a great job because they're our partners. They pay us $1.2 billion a year for a 3.5-week tournament, and they're really good about not killing officiating. ESPN, on the other hand, sells based on controversy. And so trying to get ESPN to get on board, and let me rephrase that, trying to get the talent within ESPN to get on board and be kind to officials, because we have feelings. I don't know if you know that or not, but officials have feelings. Coaches yelling at us hurts. It hurts so bad. You guys don't buy that, do you? Probably energizes us more than anything. But I spend a lot of time doing that, attending camps and looking at referees, speaking to coaching groups. that being the Big 12 coaches get together and they want to take a piece of me, so I go down and let them have that, or the ACC or the Mountain West, whoever it is. Part of my job is to go meet with them and give them a listening ear, and I think that's important. So a major effort for me is the communication piece, and we all know that part of communication is listening. So I've become much more adept at just listening and absorbing, because I've got two different conferences right now that are sharing with me the displeasure with their guys that didn't advance in the tournament. And this conference is talking about those guys that did, and this conference is talking about those guys that did, and they're in direct conflict, and my job is to absorb that. I have 4 regional advisors that work with me all year long: Jim Bird, Ted Hillary, Frank Scagliano, and Tommy Nunez. That's 23 years of Final Four experience and 30 years in the NBA. They're out watching games like I am on a regular basis. Last season, we watched, among the 5 of us, 600 basketball games. And when I say watch them, I don't mean sitting in my living room going, oh, check this game out, but breaking down every play, every decision, trying to ascertain who are the best 100 officials across the country. I personally went to 80 games last year across the country, and if you don't know this, it's a big country. When you make a trip out west, you better make it worth your while, because it's a long way out there. I've seen games in every conference, in all 32 conferences. I think it's important for me to be there and engage with their administrators. I also watched another 100 games on film and broke those down, and all that gets put into a mathematical equation which helps spit out an evaluation system that we use to choose the 100 officials. So, how's it work to get to that 100? We start the season with 900 Division I officials. The conference coordinators submit a list to me that they call their watch list, which is who's going to work my conference tournament. We take that list of about 300 guys, and we make sure that we see each and every one of those 300 guys at least once. Most of the time, we see them multiple times, especially the guys who are in consideration for advancement or guys who are in consideration for getting in the tournament. By mid-January, I've narrowed that list down to about 175. At the end of February, I have my regional advisors in a room with me. We go through all 300 names, the plus, the minus, we mark people off, and we get it down to about 120. And then by the first week of March, I submit a list of 100 officials to the NCAA Men's Basketball Committee. They put their blessing on it, and those are the guys that get to work the tournament. Given the fact that I have to consider who's the best, and geographic, conference, and diversity issues, that's how I choose the 100 officials. And all of those factors have to be considered, and call accuracy being one of the most important. Once the tournament begins, I spend 3 days in Dayton, Ohio. Then I fly to Atlanta to Turner Studios. I'm in Atlanta at the Turner Studios. 4 huge screens, a replay system, a comm device that sends me directly to Gene Steratore in New York. And when a play happens and I see it, I'll say, Gene, the guy was in a vulnerable position, hitting from behind, potential for injury. They're going to come out with an F1 foul in that play. I let go of the button. Gene Steratore, with his way of doing business, gets on air and says, oh, I really think this is going to be an F1 foul because the guy was in a vulnerable position. He was this, and he was this. Now, you might think that's controlling on my part. The NCAA, Dan Gabbett, myself, we want the narrative to be a certain way. And so I have that ability, whether it's during the first and second round, the regionals, to Final Four. I have a ring down phone from me to Gene, and we actually talk across the way so that we can help communicate the right information to the listening audience. So I'm in Atlanta for those 4 days. Then I go to New York, and I go to CBS Studios. I'm in one room, Gene's in another, and we still got the communication device between us. And then I go to Minneapolis. From March 1st to April 9th this year, I was in my bed at home 3 nights. I got laundry done, I paid bills, and then I hit the road again. So during that time, it's 20 hours a day. It's a full-time gig, 12 months a year, but that stretch, the only way I can make it through that is just by the excitement in the NCAA tournament. Now, that said, the importance of call accuracy on every game is incredibly important. Those 4 regional advisors for me break down each and every decision. I don't mean just when they blow their whistle, but each and every decision on every play. And within an hour of the game being over, I have those call accuracy numbers available to me. So I'm getting them on the first and second round, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Sunday night's pretty much an all-night affair for me, and trying to narrow out, all right, who performed the best? And if they perform the best, then they advance. We go from 100 officials to 56 in the second round, to 36 in the regionals, to 10 in the Final Four. And at the Final Four, there's 10 guys refereeing. There's also 10 guys that qualified and earned the right to be there, but we only have 10 slots. Now, call accuracy is extremely important. I'll tell you that in 2016, when I took over, our call accuracy was 92.81%. It's pretty good. All of you in the room are going, there's no way. Those guys couldn't be better than 70. In fact, Jerry told me on the way over, you guys are probably about 70% this year, weren't you? So actually, it's a little higher than that. But we've moved that bar from 92% this year in all 67 games. We're at 95.36% accurate. Now, in your businesses, in your coaching, I can't imagine in coaching that you made a mistake along the way, right? You never made a mistake along the way. Or our free throw shooting was 95%. We do really well. And yet, for me, this year, there was an inadvertent whistle in the Tennessee Iowa game that turned into a 3-point foul, which turned into 3 free throws, which sent the game to overtime. And fortunately, the ball rolled the right way and Tennessee won. That was a bad play. That official went home. In the Gonzaga Texas Tech game, we have an out-of-bounds play where there's a great block shot, but the guy stepped out of bounds to get the play, and we clearly miss it. And then we have a play in that same game with 11 seconds left where the ball gets hit out of the player's hands out of bounds. Did he hit his arm, or did he hit the ball? If he hit the ball, it's a technical foul, Class B, 1 shot. If he hit his arm, it's an F1 foul, flagrant foul, and it's 2 shots and the ball. We called a technical foul for hitting the ball and then gave the guy 2 shots. We erred on a rule. So in my way of doing business, I talked to Rick Barnes from University of Tennessee. I owned the error that we made. He said, JD, don't worry about it, what's going on. I talked to Mark Few from Gonzaga and said, Mark, now this is 2 or 3 days after the game, so I can make sure he's calm enough to have a legitimate conversation, but I own those errors. In the Auburn-Texas Tech game in the semifinals, we had a take foul that we pass on, causes the player to pull back, hits the ball off his foot, he picks it up and starts dribbling again. We miss a double dribble. I got to own those errors. And that's what all of America does, is say, hey, but isn't that the way our society is right now? We're only going to focus on that. And by the way, did I mention we were 95.36% correct? But those are the 3 things that people really pay attention to and listen to on a regular basis. Part of my job is to provide accountability and officiating and to model how that accountability should be done. I have a rule, 3 rules. If you err on a rule in a game, you're going home. And I don't care who it is. Top official, sent him home last year. Top 3 officials, sent him home last year. The guys who made those errors I spoke to did not advance. That's my alarm. Did not advance in the tournament. That they stopped officiating at that point. A team went home. The officials ought to go home as well. If you err on a game-deciding play, you're going to go home. Go back to the Northwestern game 2 years ago. The guy stuck his hand through the rim, blocked the ball, and we missed it. Now, we were the only 3 people in the gym that missed that play. Everybody else saw it, but for some reason we missed it. It was 4 minutes left in that game. There's 4 minutes left. But they had just come on a 20-point run to get it within 1 point. That's a game-deciding play. And I sent those guys home. And then if your missed call ratio is too high, obviously you go home. In 2016, I sent 10 guys home. And when I say, it'd be one thing to say a first-round guy that only gets 1 game, he's going home. He's probably going home anyhow. But I'm talking about regional level and Final Four guys. And as the years have gone by, We went from 10 guys going home to 8 guys going home to last year 4 guys going home to this year 4 guys going home. That sounds like I'm saying that in a prideful way. I just believe that officiating should be held to the same standard that everyone else is, that we need to provide accountability in the system and also allow for human mistakes. Now, I have to say this because it's just so prevalent in my mind. Our society is messed up. You all have coached kids throughout your life. You see how our society impacts what kids do and don't do. I think it's our job to model for them the appropriate behaviors, the appropriate way to handle negative things, the appropriate way to handle positive things. I think it's our job as adults to do that properly. I thought December 30th of 2009, when I was 47 years old and I blew my knee out and had to have it replaced, that wow, this officiating gig's over for me. I mean, I'm telling you, I'd go back tomorrow and be on the floor if I could. I'd go back tomorrow. The passion is still there for me. But as time has passed, I've been put in a position which allows me to influence 2,500 officials. I certainly have influence on the game. It's an important part of what drives me to continue doing this job and trying to do it the best of my ability. Now, my purpose here today was to try to give you a little bit of a glimpse behind the curtain of how does all that work? And how does he think it's from 70% to 95%? Are you kidding me? But with that said, I'm going to stop there and allow a few minutes for some questions. Be happy to answer anything about topics you'd like. Yes, in the green.
Off the record, wink, wink. When you've got the 1% and you've got the ability to see it, visualize it on replay, what are you going to take and make the decision and reverse? Take the Saints game, for example.
Wouldn't we all? And by the way, just so you know, I learned like 10 years ago in the officiating, 9 years ago when I took over as a coordinator, anytime I hear off the record, I go, oh, no, it's not. Your question really is, what are you doing with the monitor? And are we going to use it more? Are we going to use it less? That was the question Mark asked me, one of the questions when I walked in the door. We have pressure, and we're going to meet all week next week at the rules meeting. We have pressure to make sure the game has flow, that the game time stays in and under the 2-hour window, and that we don't chop up the end of a game more than it's already chopped up. Sometimes we get 2 minutes and you know it takes 20 minutes to finish that game, and as a person in the arena or a person sitting at home watching the game, you hate it. So the thought of, well, let's just add these 2 additional things into the monitor review adds to that, we're going to chop this game up even more. And there's a balance point between getting the call right and having the game, the bigger game, capital G game, I guess I would say, move forward. I think you'll see as time goes on, yes, we'll probably make some adjustments, but I think it's going to be pulled hard to keep it limited. Because the reality is, we're all humans. And unfortunately, are we going to go back and get that out of bounds play in the Gonzaga game? Well, if you're going to get that, are we going to stop replay and look at a judgment call on whether he double dribbled or not? Where do you stop it? And that's the problem with replay. Certainly the problem, Mark Balls can tell you, that the NFL has right now. They just created a set of rules that may in fact, could be successful. That's a positive way of saying it, right? It could be successful, and it has the chance to ruin NFL football in its entirety. Both things. So we have to limit that. So thank you for the question. Others? Anybody else? Yes, here in the front, and then I'll come back here to Dennis.
How hard is it to determine whether a three-point shooter's foot is outside or touching the line?
How hard is it for a to determine a 2 or a 3? That's really one of the easiest reviews we have, and the statistics show us we're about 28 to 30 seconds in those reviews because you just got to find the right angle. A lot of times when we take a minute and a half over there at replay, it's because we're not seeing the replay we need. We're going through angle after angle, and then we go, there it is. When you're in the NCAA tournament, and the Final Four has 37 cameras available, you keep punching buttons till you see the one, and then you have somebody else looking and says, hey, look at number 22. And both of those may show you something that's possibly different. And so the 2 and the 3 is really easy, and we now do it during regular timeouts, so it doesn't take away from the game. The hard ones are the F1 fouls, the out of bounds plays. Who hit it last? Was it his fingernail that touched it? Did the ball rotate just this much? Sometimes it takes 3 or 4 minutes for us to get all that information. Dennis?
I have 2 questions. How long do you spend on a game when you're reviewing the tape? And number 2, are you getting any pressure to put a female official in the NCAA men's tournament?
Okay, the 2 questions were, how long do I spend in reviewing a tape? We have a product called DV Sport, which 20 of the 32 conferences use. I can get any game in those 20 conferences downloaded, and it's available to me. I have learned in my world, whether it's in my office or whether I'm on every airplane I take, usually 2 segments because you can never fly anywhere direct, I'm breaking down 2 games. It takes me about 42 minutes to break down a full game with replay and blowing things up and seeing things. So I've got games down to about 42 minutes so I can get the quantity I need. The second question is, are we getting pressure to add women into the game refereeing college basketball? Currently, we have 1 female refereeing men's college basketball. She lives in Los Angeles. Last year was her first year. I would say there's interest to have women officiate men's college basketball. My statement, because I get asked that question a lot in public settings, JD, what are your feelings on that? And I say the same thing every time. Black, white, purple, gold, male, female, straight, lesbian, I don't care. Can they referee? I don't care. My job is to put the best referees possible on the floor, and no matter what their category in life is or who they are, then that's who I'm going to put on the floor if necessary. In the back, there was another question.
What was your career path to reach where you are today?
I don't know that reaching where I am today is a good thing, but when I was refereeing full-time, I was a CEO of Hartford Concrete in Hartford City, Indiana, manufacturing firm. I was refereeing full-time at the same time. In order to do that and not take away from my business, I flew private about 40 times a year. So I'd leave the office at 2 o'clock, go to Muncie, jump in a plane, fly to Madison, Wisconsin, referee a game, fly home. I ended at about 11:30. Get up the next morning, walk the plant floor at 6 a.m. and they'd say, weren't you in Iowa last night? Because I didn't want to take anything away from my business. That business acumen has helped me with the business of officiating, and it is a business. In addition to that, as I was a CEO and as I was refereeing, we sold the business in 06, and in I can't tell you what year it was, but anyhow, I became the commissioner of the Crossroads League. I did that for 7 years while I was refereeing full time. And the reason I did that is I thought, when I get to be about 60, I kind of like to have that NCAA national coordinator job. And being a commissioner, even of a small conference, would let me understand and see how the big boys do it. Now, my pay had a whole lot less commas in it. I didn't have television contracts. I didn't have all the things that they have, but it allowed me to see what pressures they have as a commissioner dealing with athletic directors, coaches, student athletes, the whole picture. And as this opportunity came available, it, at least for me, felt like a natural fit to move into that role. I'm sensitive to your time. I want to answer maybe 1 or 2 more questions and then I'll conclude.
Well, I got a 2-parter. I hear it coming all the time. I listen to a lot of sports on the radio. They keep talking about it. Will we gambling? How do you foresee that fitting in, if at all? Because I know it's coming. The states are wanting that money and all that good stuff. And the other one is, do you ever foresee the call made at the end of the Virginia game in the semifinals, 2 seconds to go, across the, that was the deciding basket that Mr. Guy hit from Indiana. But
Do you ever foresee an official going in front of the news media and explaining why he made that call and the reason he made that call?
All right, first question was gambling. With state-by-state gambling now becoming legal, the interest in gambling by all the parties involved is exponential. In 2004, when I was the alternate at the Final Four, Duke is playing UConn. Okafor's at the line with 1.5 seconds left, makes 2 free throws. They're up by 4. Duke takes the ball out of bounds, throws it to half court to Duhan. Duhan catches the ball, releases it. Ball's about 1.5 feet out of his hand when the horn goes. Ball goes through the courts. Count the basket. I didn't think anything about it. Next morning, this is back when we used to read newspapers. Next morning, USA Today, basket that does not matter, 75 million. So I read the article. This is in 2004. On that shot, $75 million changed hands in Las Vegas because the line was 3. And it took the game from 4 points to 1 point. $75 million in 2004. That has exponentially grown, and therefore people are keenly aware of the gambling issue. I think our instruction to our officials is only going to increase about places they can and can't go, people they can and cannot talk to, things they should and should not say. Because they go to the Marriott after the game, they have a bowl of soup and a beer. Some guy slides up beside him and says, "Man, how'd you think they played last night at Kansas State?" "Oh, they played well, but Johnny got hurt. Yeah, I saw it. His ankle really, it might be broken." Just that statement to a guy who sits down to shoot the bull with you becomes a gambler's delight, because they then know that the game is going to look different on Saturday when Johnny can't play, and so they start betting accordingly. That's the first thing. Second thing, officials being made available to media is maybe the worst idea I could ever hear in my lifetime. Coaches are getting paid wonderfully. I'll say it that way, wonderfully. You're getting paid millions of dollars to coach. Part of that responsibility is you stand up in front of people and talk and make sense and do all that kind of thing. Officials are getting paid much less money, and they're not trained to speak to media. Danny Gavitt, my boss, talks about a game where Jim Burr, 16 Final Fours, he's in a game, and 2 players are standing next to one another, and the one player goes, boom, and headbutts him right in the head. Boom, technical foul, and we go on. A headbutt like that is an ejection immediately, have a nice day, see you later. So afterwards, somehow, a press reporter got into the locker room and said, "Can we talk about the headbutt?" And Jim Burr, to quote Dan Gavitt, Jim Burr said, "Well, yeah, it was a headbutt, but it wasn't that hard." That's not a good answer. And we are not trained as referees to deal with that issue. We have pool reporter policies that are set up within each conference. Usually an administrator is on the phone with the officials at the NCAA tournament. Any pool reporter, my officials are talking to me beforehand because I want to be able to cite the rule, the environment, everything involved. Officials are not trained for that, and I think it's a really, really bad idea. Sorry. All right, I want to thank you for listening. I know you've been with me the whole time. I got one more question in the back, and then I'm going to quit.
Why in the world, on a 3-point foul, the shooter and the defender never touch until the ball is halfway to the basket?
Mm-hmm.
They come down together, but he never touched the shooter until the ball is halfway to the basket. Now, why give 3-point shots?
Okay, so the question is, if I'm an airborne shooter and I shoot and there's a defender coming at me, when he makes contact and the ball's already gone, why call a foul? We actually next week are going to talk about in the rules meeting that the coaching community in general at the Division I level wants more protection for those shooters. They want more protection, and to specifically answer your question, until I come back down to the floor, I'm still an airborne shooter, and so I have the rights of being a shooter, and any contact is a foul. So that answers your specific question. But what I will tell you is, the leaning is to provide even more protection, so that I go up in the air, I release, and a guy hits my hand, call a foul on that too. We typically disregard those little hits to the hand. I think we're going to see more to say, hey, protect the shooter all the way up, all the way down, and make sure that they're not hindered in any way from making that shooting motion. Thank you very much for your time today. I'll be here to hang out if you have more questions to ask. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, JD, really appreciate it. I don't have anything else. I really appreciate everybody coming. Please